absolutely gigantic New England blackbutt in the midst of cool temperate rainforest. Who knows how old it is, but it's been here an awfully long while. Huge tree hollows, pipes up through the middle, so ideal homes for a lot of the microbats that like to get in and shelter within big pipe tree trunks. Big hollows on the limbs, so entrances of 50 to maybe 80 centimetres, depths of 3 or 4 metres, absolute, well, it's a bit of a stereotypical statement, but nature's boarding house. It's got potentially 100 or more hollows on this one tree, and each and every one of them could be occupied by an owl, a possum, a glider, a bat, a lizard or a snake. I think over 200 fauna species on the Dorrigo Plateau are dependent upon hollows for at least some of their lifespan. A lot of them are dependent upon hollows for all of their life cycle. So sheltering, breeding, feeding, mating and basking are all different uses for tree hollows. And the bigger the tree, the bigger the hollow. And interestingly, within the rainforest, there are very few hollows. So in this landscape, if we didn't have eucalypts, we wouldn't have a whole lot of the fauna, because the rainforests simply don't provide suitable hollows. They provide a few hollows, but for animals like yellow-bellied gliders or powerful owls or glossy black cockatoos, big fauna species, powerful owls are about that big, they need a massive hollow, and the rainforest trees don't provide those types of hollows. So it really shows that across this landscape there does need to be a balance or a maximisation of resources, so patches of rainforest, patches of eucalypt forest, so that we can maximise the biodiversity that can continue to exist on the Dorrigo Plateau. If it wasn't for the eucalypt forests and the whole Dorrigo Plateau were only rainforests, it would have nowhere near the amount of biodiversity that it does. Even just thinking about the owls that are close by here, the powerful owl, the masked owl, the sooty owl, the boobook owl, they're all in these forests, and really good numbers of them, because there's a lot of food for them. There's lots of hollows, which then house possums and gliders, and the classic food for the owls. So the Chalundi forests, and we're at the edge of the Chalundi forests, they were recognised in, I think, 1992 as having the most significant assemblages of marsupials and the owls that feed upon them on the face of the planet. Arboreal marsupials, greater gliders, yellow-bellied gliders, mountain brushtail, common brushtail, ringtail possum, sugar gliders, feathertail gliders. They're all in really large numbers because of the health of the forests in this landscape. I guess though, since that time, since 1992, there have been a series of very hot fires, each of which have led to the loss of a lot of big hollow-bearing trees, because if fire's poorly managed, the fire gets in around the base of these big habitat trees, burns through the base, and the trees drop, and let's say a minimum of 400 years of growth is lost. In this case, it might well be many centuries. Some of the eucalypts in similar areas that have been studied and have had carbon-14 analysis, they've been found to be 1200 to 2000 years old. And looking at this tree, it's very hard to age a tree, but it would have to be many centuries old. In the coastal forest, it takes 130 years for hollows to first start to form. And this tree is absolutely riddled with hollows. So, really important to keep the hollows in the landscape. If we lose the hollows, we lose the fauna. So the hollows in these tall, shrubby, wet sclerophyll forests are the really critical resource for fauna habitat. We've got two relatively mature blue gums here, a couple of them with quite large hollows. Interestingly, this tree in front, it's quite a bit younger and it doesn't have any hollows. These forests are managed for conservation, and if these blue gums, these recruits, are left for the time required, so for decades through to centuries, the time required to develop hollows, these become the next generation of hollows. So by the time that this guy here is hollow bearing, these ones here will be over mature to senescence, so they'll be getting close to the end of their life. At some point they're then likely to fall, and we've just got to make sure that there's a continuous supply of hollows in these forests. And particularly with frequent burning regimes and heavy timber harvesting, you truncate that process. So you're actually losing the next generation of hollow-bearing trees, and that will present big problems for our hollow-dependent fauna. A couple of the really key fauna species that are known to live in these forests right where we are the koala, and their favourite food is the tallowood, and there's some good patches just down the slope from us, and the spotted tail quoll, which is nationally endangered, and this area is one of the last bastions, the last real strongholds of the spotted tail quoll, and there are really good numbers of them in this landscape. They can climb trees, they get on the ground, they dwell within hollows and rock stacks. They're quite a voracious predator, so they'll get up. Say this blue gum had a nest of crimson rosellas in it. They could easily climb that tree, get into the nest and eat the whole clutch of young. They are a voracious predator, but they're a really important part of a healthy ecosystem, and they really demonstrate just how healthy a lot of the forest ecosystems are around the Dorrigo Plateau, how it really is an incredibly important area for conservation and one of the thickest parts of the Great Eastern Ranges. If there weren't broad areas of forest and big corridors here, there wouldn't be quolls and there wouldn't be koalas still in this landscape.